About 5 years ago, I was dating someone very important to me, and he was moving from where he had been living with roommates into a place of his own in Brooklyn. So that Christmas in 2014, I made him this as a gift. Now, you'll probably be able to tell immediately that this talk is not about my astonishing graphic design skills. However, this was an open time frame, choose your own adventure map. I went to places in his neighborhood, bought gift cards in varying amounts at cafes and restaurants and bars. Then I picked 3 friends that lived in or worked in that part of the neighborhood. He was to choose a friend, choose a place, and go whenever inspiration struck. Now, this is a really great way to get to know a new neighborhood. However, I also had some deeper intentions behind it. I knew that a deep longing of his was to feel more connected to his community. I also knew that since he was moving, money wasn't an abundant resource. And I knew that at that time in our relationship, individuation was a medicine that our mildly codependent relationship needed. So I made him this gift. However, you'll notice when you look to the top right, I obviously had a sense of humor about this, because if you see the restaurant Kiwiana, all the 3 lines point to one person. That's me. Also, the gift cards did add up to a very specific number that was sacred in our relationship. So I was trying to weave together these longings and meanings to create this gift for him. This was one of the first times that I realized I could create and design an experience as a gift. I not only do this for people I love, but I do this for work. I am an experienced designer. I don't think anyone in the industry will be offended when I say that experienced designers are a bunch of silly, intense, empathic people who love to create rich, meaningful, immersive worlds for others. When I first got started on my journey to becoming an experienced designer, I studied with a theater production company called Odyssey Works. Odyssey Works creates productions for an audience of 1. Dozens, sometimes hundreds of people work to create this production over a single weekend. And often, people and places are planted in their lives months beforehand. The founders of Odyssey Works say that studying this person while they're trying to create this experience for them mirrors the excesses of falling in love. I fall into this process. I both lose myself and find myself in it. It abducts me. And so I call these experiences abductive. You may never have heard the word abductive used in this way before, but I'm an entrepreneur, so I can make these things up. What I mean when I say an abductive experience is this. Have you ever felt the resonance of a poem or a piece of music so deeply that it just punched you in the gut? Can you recall feeling wholly embodied in dance or sex or eating a delicious meal? Can you recall feeling taken by someone or something, just dropping into a deep conversation, feeling really seen by someone? When I talk about an abductive experience, I mean that we are both taken out of the quotidian or the daily life and simultaneously moved closer to ourselves. We're both taken away from and moved closer toward. So, why do I want to talk to you today about experience design? Would you even want to design an experience? Does it sound a bit overwhelming? Or perhaps you're realizing that maybe you do it already in small moments in your daily life. Well, the answer is meaning. There are about 700 of you here in this room. Well, in 2018, a nationwide survey of 20,000 adults found that 54% feel that no one actually knows them. Translated here, that's about 380 of you, or it's the person to your right. The study also found that 56% of people felt that the people around me, they're not really with me. Here, that's about 390 of you, or it's the person to your left. And 40% of people said that their relationships didn't feel meaningful. Maybe that's you. It's definitely been me. And I'm willing to bet that everyone in this audience at one point has thought, no one really knows me. The people around me, they're not really with me. And our culture tells us that just bodies in a room is enough. We get together so often out of obligation or efficiency. We go to weekly meetings. We go to happy hour. We get together for the holidays, often out of a sense of obligation. But it is not enough. It is not enough to have you in this room without also placing in this room these sparks and ideas and gifts and something to give yourself over to, something to abduct you. So how can we make our relationships more meaningful? I believe that we must design for meaning. We must design for openness and curiosity and wonder. We must especially commit to this in our long-term relationships, because that is where lethargy and stagnation can take over. And lethargy and stagnation are killers of connection. Now, this phrase I keep saying, experience design. It's possible that some of you might be thinking I mean like to curate an entire experience moment to moment, kind of like one of those terrible trip itineraries where you go and then minute to minute is planned and then you get home and you're more exhausted than when you left. That's not what I mean. Experience design calls for openness, and for me, it calls for working with the unknown. A word I love to use when I describe working with the unknown is pronoia. While the more commonly heard term paranoia signals a fear or suspicion of the unknown, pronoia is the opposite. Pronoia is a state of mind or belief that the world or the unknown or the universe is conspiring for you to create positive, beautiful moments in your life. I designed an experience for a woman named Kayla recently. I sent her to an immersive nature art installation in Denver. Then I sent her to the park to write poetry. And my intention was to have her wind up at a poetry reading that night and to read her poems on stage. She told me afterwards that she noticed so many things that felt meaningful to her along the way. She noticed bees and owls, which are spirit creatures of hers. And then, when she got to the poetry reading, she did end up signing up to read. She put herself in the 7:35 p.m. slot. Well, the person right before her in the 7:25 p.m. slot, his poems deeply moved her, and in his last poem, he named her birth date in his poem as the day that he almost died. This spoke to her and told her that she was exactly where she needed to be. This felt like a moment of alignment. She told me that it dropped her in her body and made her even more present to the experience. And this is a beauty of experience design. It helps us notice these little moments that might otherwise go unnoticed. It drops us into the moment and makes us pay more attention to life. A phrase I love to refer to was coined by Umberto Eco, the author, and that phrase is open work. Open work is a work that is not complete until the reader or user finishes it. This is what experience design is about. This is what art is about. This is what intimacy is about. Experience design is inherently relational to each other and to the momentary time and space. I will not design the same experience for you as she would for you, or as he would for you. Our own mysteries and histories and absurdities inform what we create. Our timing and season of life inform what we create and how we experience it. And in this way, we connect and we honor the fluidity of being human. As a designer, I am rejuvenated by this creative process. I feel empathy for the person I'm designing for, and this sense of devotion just comes cycling right back to me to enliven me. As an experiencer, We get to embody surrender. We're invited to surrender and to notice the clues around us and the magic in everyday life. So, how can you bring this into your life? I have a few tricks. 1, ask the people around you deeper questions. What are you yearning for? Where do you need support? What are you redefining in your life right now? Then, tell them you'd like to plan something for them, but keep it a little bit of a secret if they're okay with that. Then ask them to block out a period of time, 3 hours, 2 hours, 1 hour, even a half an hour for their experience. I'll give you a tangible example for this. Let's say you send a friend to a coffee shop with a notebook and a bunch of colored pens. When they arrive to the coffee shop, their favorite song magically starts playing on the radio, on the speakers. And their favorite drink whisks over to their table. Sounds pretty simple, but this could be a really beautiful experience for someone who wants to feel at home wherever they go, who is experiencing decision-making fatigue, and who would love some time and space and permission to be creative. Another technique I use is displacement. I went over to a girlfriend's house recently, and she and I were gathering together our wine and cheese for the evening, and then one of us, I can't remember who, decided that we should sit on the floor instead of the couch. I don't know why we decided this, and I don't mean just in open space, but sort of like squished between the wall and the dining room table. And our conversation was one that we didn't want to leave. And I'd venture to say that part of that is because we had displaced ourselves from our normal routine, from our grooves onward toward the couch. And for someone you don't know, try asking a question that we might normally ask and changing out the W word: who, what, when, where. So for example, that common question of, what do you do? Maybe it's, where do you do your most fulfilling work? Instead of, where do you live? Maybe it's, when do you live? When do you feel the most alive? Instead of, who do you know here? Maybe it's, who don't you know here? And who seems interesting to you? Asking meaningful questions provokes answers in their likeness. So today, this week, over the lunch break, I invite you to create a small abductive moment for yourself or someone else. Thank you.